Oh, I don't know. This show's just a train wreck. For those of you that tried to join us for our review of Dark Phoenix, we will have that up later on Patreon, and if I can figure out how to turn it into a movie, I'll upload it back to YouTube as well. But yeah, what a nightmare. But hey, we're back for our second show of the day, and uh, yeah, a hell of a week in wrestling. Holy crap, was there a lot going on? Before we Before we get into that, I want to get your uh, input here on a couple of breaking stories that literally were hot off the presses earlier this morning. One of them is Dalton Castle. He's a free agent, no longer under contract with Ring of Honor. Sounds like he is putting out feelers to possibly move to a different company. You think that's a smart move? You think anybody other than Ring of Honor can accurately keep Dalton Castle a superstar? Yep. Yep. Even I and see, I get where you're coming from. I personally liked him better when he was a heel with the original member of the Boys before his Silas Young feud and before his Ring of Honor or his title run. Um, I enjoyed his title run. I thought that he did a great job. But you're right, when he came back and turned heel on the Boys, and then came out with New Boys, and then tried to be a heel for a little bit against Roosh, and that clearly didn't work because they just pimped him out to Roosh. It just like you said, he's been lost. He's been lost for the last couple of years. Do I think he's got the wrestling ability to go somewhere else and do well? I think so, but I think he would drastically have to change his character. Like I think that if he goes anywhere else, he would be somebody completely brand new, not Dalton Castle anymore. Probably. Right. Right. Yeah. He, right. And I'm kind of there with you too. I just think even if he stays in Ring of Honor, I think it's time for persona change. I think he needs to get away from the Boys. He needs to get away um, from what he's doing, but I don't know how good of a character he'd be outside of that. So fresh coat of paint is probably his best opportunity. Maybe a run in NXT. They remake him like they did Punishment Martinez, because that sure as hell worked for Punishment or Damian Priest. Now the other thing we have here is there's been this whole thing about Jay White. Um, is he done with his contract? Is he moving on? There's rumors going across the board where yes, his contract is expired and he's fielding offers from other people. But then this interesting bit of news came out when AEW first started up. They reached out to Jay White and wanted him to come along with them, like so many other wrestlers did from NJPW and everything. And he told um, Kenny and Cody and the Bucks that he was under a 7-year contract with NJPW. Well, if that's the case, he still has what, 5 years to go? So it's I'm trying to figure out what is happening here. Do you think that he's done and this he's moving on, or do you think this is just a work? So he was going to Andrew Luck it um, and just retire during his prime. Yeah, but that was more of a got forced to go play baseball because he had a gambling addiction and whatever. um, yeah, yeah, but I don't I don't know. He's so great at what he does. There's just certain people that I just can't see thriving in another promotion the way that they thrive where they're at, and Jay White's one of those. I think he's talented. I think he's probably one of the best heels in the business, but I can't see him being the mega star that he is anywhere else. What's that? Pretty much, yeah. So he and I are actually on the same page with this. Me and Meltzer agree. Holy crap! No, I agree with that. I mhm, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. I don't know that anybody could fulfill that role that Jay White does, and I don't know that Jay White could fulfill that role in another company. I just don't. I think he is born and bred to play that role and to play it in NJPW because I think NJPW is the only place where he's given the freedom to be that guy. Mhm. He's the best heel in the business. I've been saying that for 2 years. Oh my god, that would be but that's what I'm saying. The only place that would probably that he probably would succeed would be AEW. And, WWF, let's face it, or WWE, I'm sorry, they would change him too much. He doesn't have the quality of opponents to work with in a place like Impact. Maybe Ring of Honor, depending on where they put him, but I don't see him succeeding with Ring of Honor to the level that he is with NJPW. AEW might be the only option, but the one thing that I have been disappointed with AEW about since day one is their stop and start on everybody that's not the big four. It just seems like they will get hot on somebody for a little bit, and then that person just ends up in the back. And it just, I don't. I think his best place to stay is NJPW. I think his best place to succeed is NJPW, and I think if he stays there someday, he will go down as one of the greatest of all time. Has his heart into it, yeah. Because I mean, if you think about it, he was pushed to the moon last year, and then all of a sudden, Coda comes in, and Coda's the big, or in 2018, 19, I'm sorry, 18, whenever it was, and then Coda comes in, and he was the big dog, and then it just, I, I kind of get what he was. Yeah, true. And yeah, and you know my feelings on that. I felt like last year was a better year to pull the trigger, but uh, no, except Brock Lesnar. Yeah. And that was pounded home during Wrestle Kingdom this year. The other big news is that WrestleMania 24 was removed off of the WWE network. No explanation given, just taken off. And the reason why that's big news is because that was Bret Hart, or that was Ric Flair's last match against Shawn Michaels. Nope, it was removed, I believe yesterday. No explanation for it. What I've been hearing is that people think it's because of the music that Floyd Mayweather used. That was the match with Mayweather versus Big Show, and he used a 50 Cent song. And 50 Cent tried to sue the WWE back in 2010 about it and lost. But I wonder if that might be something where there's another dispute about the song and they just took it down briefly to edit that part out, like kind of like Ring of Honor does, or if or what's going on. But that's the only reason I can think of that they would do that. I hope it's something brief because I've gone back and watched that Shawn Michaels Ric Flair match a number of times, and I wouldn't mind seeing it again. Yeah, and that was a triple threat with Orton, Cena, and was it Triple H? Yeah, true. Right, right, right. Yeah, true. him beating the streak when he did was, about 10 years past its time. I mean, I know there was original plans about Bob Brock losing the streak back in '02, '03, '04, but then he quit and went to MMA. So, well, yeah, because Punk probably saw the writing on the wall. He was, what, out of wrestling less than a year later? And why give that kind of thing to somebody who's not going to be around? Mm, fair enough. So we had 6 big shows this week. One of them 6. One of Yeah, well, yeah, but, I saw one of the matches. Um, Actually, no, I didn't. I saw a review of one of the matches where it showed highlights. And of course, I don't care about endings, so whatever. Um, I need to rediscover the password so I can see it on the Impact Plus app, but there were 2. Well, that Yeah, that happened with me in the Ring of Honor app too. They extended my or gave me 3 free months and then didn't renew, and it was just a nightmare. But the 2 big Mhm. Yeah. Well, what happened here is, of course, there was a great tournament. I'm not. There was a great tournament for the X Cup. Couple of our favorites are in the tournament. I'll leave it at that. Well, Ace Austin for one. Yeah, and then there was a Moose versus um, Willie Mack. Yeah, there was a Moose for. Oh, every time I see his name, I think the same thing. But and then there was a Moose versus Willie Mack. I quit match over the yeah, which yeah, but it had a really odd finish. Like I'm still kind of scratching my head over the finish. So yeah, I think we definitely need to because it was just odd. Um, but okay, so on to the 4 big shows that we actually did watch. I thought I thought it was good, not great. Um, when the 2 best matches on the night were one that were both ones where the outcome was not what I wanted, and I didn't like the lead up to the outcomes. That was a downer, and that I'm talking about both the heavyweight tag match and then, of course, the main event. Um, and then my favorite match ended up being El Phantasmo and Takahashi. But like you said, it felt like they were both holding back a little bit. Like they were trying to wait for a bigger show, or maybe or a bigger spot or something, or maybe Takahashi was holding back because he didn't want to outshine his night 2 performance. I don't know, but yeah, when I went back and watched it, because I thought it was fantastic at first, and then after you and I talked about it a couple days ago, I went back and rewatched it, and I was like, oh, this isn't as great as I thought it was. Agreed. It felt like a big show, but not a Wrestle Kingdom. And I think part of it was because of those two filler matches. The uh, I can't think of it now. Ah, damn it. Um, why can't I think of it now? No, that was a pre-show. So, and I mean that was dumb too. Come on, Toro Yano gets in and doesn't even have to get into the ring to win. The Kenta versus Kojima, to me that felt like a filler match. I mean, Kenta, yeah, he should have been there, but should have been somebody other than Kojima. Yeah, Dave Finley or somebody, or somebody with a little. It, it just, I don't know why. Exactly. And the whole thing of it was is they kept bringing up Jushin Thunder Liger retiring, and then how all the other old guard are starting to get to the point where they're going to retire, and this is Kojima's last chance, and blah 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 blah. Um, but the like I said, I felt like the two best matches, the outcome of those matches were kind of a letdown for me, and that was God against the Techers. Can you put that in the sink, please? God against the Dangerous Techers, and then Ibushi versus Naito. Well, it's not that I don't like Kota Ibushi. It's just he's got some drawbacks that are really shining right now, and I don't feel like. And I get it. It's NJPW's way. 2 years. Blah 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 blah. But I just felt like he was on such a roll last year, and then after losing twice, I never felt like, even though he won, the G1. He ended up losing the shot to Jay White less than a month later. So it just felt like any momentum that Coda had was gone. Yeah, it didn't seem to me. It just wasn't as fulfilling as I think it could have been. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's the fact that I personally, Naito and White are two of my favorites in the company, and Coda is, I like Coda, but he's just not one of my favorites. I don't. Maybe I was disappointed. Maybe it was I just didn't feel like Ibushi was in that spot where he should have even wrestled for the title, because he lost his shot. But then not only wrestle for the title, but win two nights. It just, to me, I didn't feel fulfilled with the story. Right. Right. No, because I there was a Drew McIntyre. there was a Drew McIntyre story involved. It wasn't just him coming out of nowhere to win the Rumble. It was him kind of building up to that badass moment through, with his partnership with Dolph Ziggler and all that stuff. Um, I I mean, I get the Kota Ibushi story, but there's just parts of the story that kind of make me feel like, why was he even there? Much less the fact that he won it. If they had stuck with the G1 story and he'd gone in and he had, was the G1 winner, I would have been frustrated because I felt like it just wasn't the right time. But ultimately, I would have been like, okay, yeah, he's earned a spot. He came back, he beat Jay White to retain the title. He, had a match with whoever and beat them to retain the title, and now he's in this spot. I would have been a little more okay with it. But the fact that he lost his chance but was still given his chance anyway was the part that frustrated me. Okay. Right. Personally, I like the Sonata story better. Yeah, I just didn't like the way that this felt. I didn't like the fact that it to me it felt forced. It felt like we're gonna give Coda this spot even though he may not technically deserve this spot. If they had figured out a way to make it so that he deserved that spot, I would have felt about it differently. But I didn't feel like he even should have been in that match because he lost his chance. It took away a lot of the G1 briefcase feel. You go out there and you earn that title shot and you defend that title shot. And if you lose that title shot, you lose the title shot. You don't just get the damn title shot again anyway. You lose that. You lost it. You lost your title shot. Right. 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 True. Another thing too that really kind of got me, and I don't know how to. What is going on with my stupid computer now? There. It's just everything late today has just been a freaking nightmare. Fair enough. Right. Yeah. It just. Yeah, I get it. But I when you were talking about that, I was thinking, when shh, guys, come on. When when Jay White was talking about why he doesn't or why he's quitting, he was talking about how he's disrespected. And I was thinking back about by NJPW, by the decision makers in NJPW, and I'm sitting there thinking, how does that make sense? You're in pretty much every high profile storyline, you're in every high profile match. How does it make sense that NJPW is disrespecting you? If he had said the fans, that would have made a little more sense. Right. No, and I do agree. And I agree with that. I do. I feel like him saying that NJPW is disrespecting him though when he's 28. he- Right. 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 And not only that, but he when was the last time a guy who wasn't an established star walked into a company and within 3 years has the resume Jay White has? He's the leader of Bullet Club. He beat Okada at Wrestle Kingdom. He's been the heavyweight champion. There's so much that he has done in the 3 years at only 28 years old that it's hard to say, oh, yeah, you're being disrespected by this company. When most people within their first 3 years are fighting over the Never Championship or the Intercontinental Championship. I mean, he's a multi time champion. He's, Yeah, it's just that's why I'm thinking that, for him to use the, "Well, NJPW is disrespecting me" line just feels hollow. It feels like it's starting to feel more storyline than anything else, because it's just how high profile Jay White is in NJPW. The fact that, he's booked, pandemic aside, he's been booked at the top of every card since he returned to NJPW 3 years ago. Yeah. No, no. Yep. Right, right. Yeah, like I said, he's got a hell of a resume. He's not being disrespected by the company. He may be disrespected in his mind by the fans, but even then I'd have to argue because he does his job. He gets the fans riled up. Yeah, and better than yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess if he wanted to say, yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, exactly, and that's why I said that was the one thing about his conference, and I thought about it, but I didn't really think about it until you just mentioned when you were breaking down, kind of the Jay White stuff. But he, I don't see that he was disrespected by NJPW at all. NJPW, the fans, anything like that. So for him, that's why I'm starting to think this is more storyline than anything, because it just doesn't feel like his thoughts of being disrespected is accurate. No, right. No, no. I mean, and rarely ever is somebody in their first title run a long time champ. Um, but yeah, I don't know. So that's where I'm at with the whole Jay White stuff, and I think that I personally believe this is storyline, or like you said, maybe he's just done wrestling. But I would like to know why he feels like NJPW is disrespecting him. Right, right. Can you think of anybody else that has come in as a rookie? And I'm talking any company that has come into a company as basically a rookie. Because I know Excursion and everything, but when he comes back to NJPW, he's coming back as a rookie. But anybody in any company that's come in as a rookie, other than Okada and maybe Brock Lesnar, that has had the kind of success that Jay White has had. I mean, Okada clearly, and Lesnar. Lesnar was pushed to the moon right from the start. But I can't think of another rookie other than those three, or that have had any kind of success. I guess maybe Kurt Angle. But AJ wasn't. I mean, when AJ came into Impact as a rookie, yeah, he won a lower championship. But did he? Yeah, I guess he did. He did win the title before 2005. So yeah, you're right. But was he considered a rookie because he had worked with WCW before then? Where where okay, would remember. Yeah, that's a good point. He was worse. He was a tag team jobber. So yeah, you're right. But yeah, I mean, other than okay, there's four. I can't think of anybody else that has had that kind of success where they got within 3 years they were that huge of a superstar. Yeah, and that's probably all there is. Just can't think of anybody else. Ugh. Was he a heavyweight title holder within 3 years? I mean, plus I thought he came from somewhere else. Yeah. So I mean, those territory days don't count, especially with WWF, because everybody that came in was something somewhere else. Because I mean, you could say, well, Hogan, because within a year of being, in the in WWF, he was a heavyweight champion, and then he was also, the second longest reigning champion ever, and still is. But ultimately, he was a megastar in AC in a I can't think of the AWA before then. So I wouldn't count him. So I think those four that we talked about are the only four. And if anybody can think of anyone else, let us know. Comments. Let us know in the comments section. On our Twitters, wherever. Jesus Christ. Okay, if we're going solely Wrestle Kingdom, um, I'd rather go by the week because I think that that will finally get us into the other three shows. My I'm gonna reveal my first. Yeah, I'll just go 1 through 5. Omega Phoenix number one, no question. That Omega Phoenix number one. Takahashi or no Shingo and uh, Cobb would be number two. O'Reilly and Finn Balor would be number three. Takahashi Ishimori would be number four, and number five would be Kota and White. I liked it better than anything else I saw. It's not going to go down as a match of the year for me, like the other four might. But I liked it better than anything else I saw. No, I didn't. Yeah, that's why it was as low as it was for me, was because he tapped out. But I loved the whole, quote unquote broken jaw storyline that they were doing. I thought that was well done. I liked the fact that it wasn't. a typical move for move wrestling match. It wasn't a high flying wrestling match. It was 2 people that looked like they were having an MMA fight. And I Yeah, and that part I liked. I liked how vicious O'Reilly was. I loved that moment when I like because I've never seen anything like that. When we saw Kevin Owens do it with the fingertip, that was like, "Oh my god, that's great, amazing." And then to see Kyle O'Reilly do it by biting the middle rope was like, "Holy crap, I've never seen anything like that." And then to get kicked in the face for it was it just there were a couple of those standout moments where I was like, "Okay, great." Now, had we had anything better in any of the other previous shows, I don't think that would have made it. Or if I'd maybe seen Balor O'Reilly won, maybe I wouldn't have thought that way. But that's the way I thought watching the 4 shows. Right. Oh my god, that just the moves that they did. Some of the I mean, how many Hurricane Ranas were in like the first 2 minutes? There was something like 60 of them. It was insanity. And then, watching Omega get dropped on his head from one of those Hurricane Ranas, then whatever that top rope Canadian destroyer thing that Phoenix did, I just there were yeah, and yeah, there was so many moves that I saw that I'm just like my mouth dropped open. I couldn't believe what I was watching. Yep. And the start of the presentation can actually be fucking amazing. Right. My favorite part of my favorite part of that whole presentation was Tama Tonga on Twitter. He came on afterwards and said, "It's not the Bullet Club without a Samoan." That's my favorite part of the whole thing. Yeah, yeah, that's what I was thinking too, but, that was my favorite part of the whole presentation with Tama Tonga. Oh, Jesus. Mhm. Yep. Well, and I messaged you right after I saw it and said that was the best never match I've seen since Shibata Ishii. Yeah, yeah. Right. And for me, I think what really took away from me, and like you'd mentioned just now, um, I've always been really big on presentation, and I look at the whole story, start to finish. Like this White versus Coda story, which added to the my enjoyment of this match, started last year at Wrestle Kingdom. So it's not like I'm not when I'm watching the quality of this match, I'm not just taking into account the match. I'm taking into account everything, including the aftermath, including the announcers, including Coda's current story. And there's a couple of things that bother me that it lowered this rating for me. One, Sonata. What gives Sonata the right, other than the fact that he's pulling a Kenta and just coming out and saying, "I'm next challenger"? Where has Sonata earned his challenge? Um, Second, uh, but they also said that the night before about Osprey and Okada. Yeah, they said the winner of this is going to be next in line. So that's part the Sonata, that part of the presentation bothered me. Um, the whole deity thing, like it was almost too much. I don't mind it, fine. They'd said it a couple times night one about Coda becoming a god and all this stuff, and but the way that Chris, what's his name, the announcer, really hammered that, like he hammered that in for the entire match. It was like every other line he said was talking about Koto becoming a deity, and you can't defeat a god like that and all this stuff. And it just, to me, it just got to be too much. That's a heel tactic. That's something I would have expected out of White, not Coda. Um, and then the other part, yeah, right. And I get that, and I understand that, and I understood that. My problem wasn't so much the fact that he said it or even the announcer said it. My fact was that I was disappointed in. It was how much they went with it, how much Chris was. I mean, it was literally every other sentence. It got to be so much that he said it that every time he did, I cringed. Um, and it was just overdone. That I don't have a problem with the fact that he said it. I understood his reasoning behind saying it, everything, but the fact that they overdid it is what bothered me. And then the third thing that bugged me, and this has been bugging me about this little thing for probably the better part of the year since he started doing it, was his whole hulking up and going to this dark place. Again, wouldn't have a problem with it if it actually won him a match occasionally. Or if he at least got the upper hand. But he'll go through this little hulking up moment. Oh, he's in a dark place now. He's gonna do some evil, bad things. And it usually only lasts for a couple minutes and it's midway through the match. If it had actually ever led to something, I think I would be okay with it a little bit more, but it never leads to anything. It's kind of like when Cena broke out that springboard stunner, and it ended up being just a transition move and not a finisher. It was a letdown, and to me, this whole dark Coda thing is a letdown. And see that's fine, but without it actually getting him a victory, without it actually turning the tides, or um, you know, moving the match to a point where he gains the upper hand because of it, with his character and as beloved as he is and everything about him, there's no point to have that as part of his repertoire. It just there's just no point. It doesn't really advance the story. It doesn't advance the story of the match because it's just a throwaway moment. Or am I not seeing it? Is it somehow advancing his character that I don't understand? Maybe. Right. I mean, I see your point too. I feel like there's just it's one of those little things that there's just no reason for it to be. And I just, especially when you're pushing him as a good guy and all this stuff, there's no reason for it. Absolutely no reason for it, and that's what bothers me about it. Holy crap! Sorry about that. I guess we had more to talk about than I actually even thought. Now that too, yeah. Mhm. And the other thing that, and we still got to hear your last two matches of the week, but the other part about New Year's Evil and why I felt like it was the fourth best show that I watched this week was the whole Dexter Loomis thing, especially the intro. It just was weird. And I get it, his character and everything, but why would you have somebody host that never talks? Yeah, I just it just that part weird was weird. I didn't like the fact that it other than, there being a heavyweight title match, did any part of this show feel special? It felt like a regular show. Yeah, possibly. Mhm. Mhm. Night of vers Yeah, and one other disappointment that I had with Wrestle Kingdom was the fact that the Empire didn't get a single win. I mean, here's this brand new faction that you're trying to push, and not one of them got a win. Yeah, that is true. That is true. And then, quickly, and we probably don't have to spend much time on it because I have a feeling that a lot of years are going to be the same. But looking back at 2020 alone, not all the stuff that we watched, I would have to say my five top wrestlers. Number one, Omega. I can't argue anything that Omega's done this year. I've been saying it all year long. It's just a pleasure to watch him. His arc, with the tag team titles and then to become the heavyweight title and turn heel, and his entrance, it just everything about Omega was on point this year. Second would be Hiromu Tanahashi or Takahashi. Every match he did seemed like a five-star match. No matter who he was against, heavyweight, junior, didn't matter. He went out there and put on a five-star match every time. Osprey would, yep. And if you look at everything he did, and if you look at everything he did through the Super J Cup, through the or not Super J Cup, through Best of Super Juniors, and yep, and he, granted he lost to Ishimori earlier in the year, but other than that, he put on that classic with Osprey at the beginning of the year. And that leads me to number three, and the reason I'm rushing through this because I know we're pressed for time, but would be Osprey. Osprey is my number three, so that's my top three. Here's where things might get a little wonky. My number four is Jay White. I know we lost a lot of Jay White because of the COVID outbreak and all that stuff, but I can't think of another wrestler that I anticipated and was more excited to see again. And when you look at not only his accomplishments, but just the man, there's not a better heel on the planet than Jay White. Uh, And I just think he continued everything he's been doing and pushed it to a new level this year. And then my fifth and final would be Roman Reigns, because he's another guy that just kind of took everything he did to a brand new level, and now he's probably the only interesting thing in WWE outside of Kevin Owens. Well, I when I sat down and thought about it, I can't think of anybody else in any other company that I would have put as having that kind of year start to finish, where he became the talk of the world. Yeah. Mm. And I've discussed it so many times throughout the last 6 months that you all know my feelings. Yeah. Ah. See, and with Jay White being number 4 and number 5, outside of those top 3, it was really, really difficult because we didn't have full years from people. We didn't have, we had so many different character changes and things like that. And that's why, and Jay White being one of my favorites. And like I said, I've never anticipated a return of somebody or felt as excited to see somebody back on my screen as I did Jay White. Um, that number 5, though, that was it could have been evil. He had a hell of a year. It like you said, could have been Darby Allin. It could have been, I mean, Jesus, look at the year Orange Cassidy had. He's had a year right up there with Darby Allin. The only difference was Darby won a championship. Um, I mean, that number 5 spot could have gone either way. I think those top 4, especially those top 3, you can't argue against. For me, Jay White at 4 is unarguable. Number 5 could have been 5 or 6 different people. Yeah, and see, I went with, and like I said, I've been talking for 6 months. My reason for not having Ibushi, I felt like he had a down year. So, but oh yeah, which looks to be good. I want to see Darby versus Brian Cage. I want to see how much Darby can get ragdolled. All right, guys. Patreon.com/slash Kingdom of Honor. Head there. Um, we're actually doing something. I've got quite a bit of free content up there. In fact, stuff you can listen all the way back to September. Usually, I only have the last month's worth of shows up there because, well, we're a topical wrestling. Uh, we're topical with our wrestling. But I've left some freebies up there going back to all the way back to September. And the show that we missed, well, that I didn't correct settings for, and you probably didn't hear the whole thing of, Dark Phoenix. That was a YouTube show that we did for our pop culture. That's going to be up for free on our Patreon for a little bit as well. So if I can't get it uploaded to YouTube, you'll be able to hear it there. But patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor, you get a chance to listen to everything we've done, including a lot of exclusive stuff, going all the way back to our original shows back in 2016. And then YouTube, of course, if you're listening, hit the like button, subscribe button, ring the notification bell. Leave us a comment in the below about who your wrestler of the year is, match of the year. If you can think of anybody else that has had a initial 3-year run anywhere near Jay White, Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, and AJ Styles. And then, of course, Twitter. I'm at Regi Co-op. He's at Zanman LOP. Hit us up on there as well. Did I lose you, Shane? Or are you stuck on mute? Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I should be able to. I could probably squeeze it in. I mean, we're gonna do what, 3 episodes? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and we'll probably have a shorter week next week because we went off on the X-Men stuff in our original show, and then there was just so much to talk about. Yeah. Before we move into another series, yeah, I agree. At some point, I want to watch Nosferatu too. Remember we did that? Yeah, because remember we did Lock and Key earlier this year, and that was just phenomenal. And you mentioned Nosferatu being similar, right? So I don't read. If it's not subtitles, it doesn't get read in my house. Oh, Jesus, that's right. Wow, yeah, we've kind of stopped and started a few things, haven't we? Um, but all right, so I guess that's all I've got. Goodbye.